Hello everybody, the iLord Root here, and today we are returning to our Let's Play for Kerbal Space Program. So you can see that we have a new version here, and it turns out that there's a couple of new features we can look at, and we're actually going to explore, unmanned vessels today, because as you might recall from the last video, we lost Jebediah Kerman in a rather bizarre accident, so the entire manned space program has been grounded and pending an investigation. But what we are going to do in this case is we're going to launch satellites instead, so we don't risk anybody's lives. So here, we are going to go ahead and resume the game. A new update seems to be a little bit laggier when it comes to loading. Hopefully it won't take too terribly long. Maybe it just has to do with some kinks that'll get ironed out eventually. Hopefully when this comes up, you'll see we have a new building. In fact, we have two new buildings. We have what appears to be our astronaut complex, and we also have some unknown building here. Just about every building here seems to have gotten a major redesign, so let's go ahead and begin working on our new rocket. And I decided I wanted to go back to that sort of mini Atlas heavy design that that I was going to use for a satellite. And you might remember we had trouble getting this thing off of the ground earlier. I guess the best place to start is we need to actually start with our satellite itself. And so, you can see in this highly upgraded, vehicle assembly building. We actually have a little bit more going on now. You can see we have this elevator moving up and down, which is kind of a nifty little touch. And I guess really the first question is, what do we need on a satellite? Well, a satellite, of course, needs batteries, because this thing is going to be going off of its own power. And if we run out of power, the satellite will stop working. And so we probably then also want some form of power regeneration as well. And there are many ways we can do that. We can put on these solar panels that that what they'll do is they will track the sun or whatever. So if we just put 4 of them on there, I'm hoping that'll be enough. And of course, we're probably going to want some kind of fuel here as well. And so we're going to put a small fuel tank on here. And it looks like, in fact, that there's been a complete redesign of the fuel tanks and everything. So it's definitely probably a good idea to have a reaction control system, even though this is probably going to be a light spacecraft or whatever, it probably wouldn't hurt to have one on there. So, we're going to put on, one of these smaller fuel tanks. It actually, will probably only give us just enough to work with. I don't know why it's being so laggy today. As you can see, this is a tiny sort of deal. And so we're gonna use this thing to move around in our orbit. And we'll put 4 of those on there, even though that may or may not be enough. So in reality, we might be better served by just putting one of these down here. So we've got ourselves our basic probe, and I guess really we should put down some reaction control. Oh, and I guess too, an ASAS would be a good idea. Except our ASAS is a little bit too big. So what we'll do instead is we will go to structural here, and we will go from tiny to medium. And when we do that, then we should be able to stick our ASAS down. And we do a lot of things here. We definitely, again, want RCS fuel, and we'll stick that down here. We also, of course, want again, the batteries, and we can do that multiple ways. We can stick one of these larger batteries, you know, underneath the RCS tank, or I guess right at it, and this will give us a ton of power to work with. And then we also want some fuel as well. So we'll put on reaction control, and we will add our engine, and that'll be our first stage. So my basic idea here was that we were going to go ahead and reuse our first launcher design, and that's probably not going to be too difficult to do. But I do want to make some changes. First of all, I'm going to try it without the winglets and just a gimbaled engine, because the winglets seem to cause much more trouble than they were worth. And so I think it's probably worth not having them at all. We're going to use our gimbaled engine instead to keep everything level or whatever. And we shouldn't really need too much in the way of our rocket. we should probably need maybe a smaller sort of stage here, and I'm hoping that we may not even need as much fuel as we had last time. So we're gonna put down a again the non-gimbaled engines for the second stage, and we're going to connect them using fuel lines. So let's go ahead and set that up. We want this thing to fire along with the rest of our engines. It turns out that apparently I believe the nose caps don't really make a difference, although let's see how much drag this thing has. If we add the nose caps, I think they actually do add drag, so I'm going to avoid that. I'm gonna get us fueled up here. And I'm going to avoid the balance issues we had earlier by simply running these through the center. And if everything works out, then this should be good enough to get us into orbit. So let's go ahead, let's call this Fletchnik, because I can't really think of a bigger name, or a better name rather. And we're going to go ahead and attempt launch. So hopefully this thing is compact enough to where we can get it up into the orbit we need it without any issues. It looks like we are just coming up now. So anyway, I'm gonna do a little bit of preparation here. You can see that we're no longer a probe, or no longer a command module. We're a satellite, and that's pretty cool. And I'm gonna try turning on SAS here, and I'm just going to, you know what, I'm not even gonna throttle up completely. It seems like it'd be overkill to do that. And so far we are actually much more stable than the last time, so this is, in my mind, a good thing. We're gonna go for an orbit of about 250 kilometers, and we should be able to pretty easily reach that. Or at least I'm hoping so anyway. So we've gotten off to a good start so far, and I think we are already doing pretty well. So before too long, we will jettison these tanks, maybe when we get up to 10K, and we will begin our orbital insertion. So let's go ahead and do that now, and we will get this thing a show on the road. So now Oh, you know what I forgot to do? I forgot to put, the solar arrays on here. But at least we know that our launch stack is stable, and that's a very good sign. We also, incidentally, might want to put some equipment on this thing. I'm just gonna fly this thing into the ocean. We can recover it later. So, go back to, a vehicle assembly building. Hopefully, this won't take as long to load. And, we will put in our solar arrays that I completely forgot to put back on. So, that should be pretty easy to do. And we can actually afford to have a few more. Now, there are a few different types of solar arrays here, as you can see. There are these with the heavy casing that you can, I believe it sort of protects the panels. I can't really see the difference in, well, I guess there's a little bit of a difference in mass. I can't really see that there's really any reason to go with the heavier panels, so I'm gonna put these on here. We also can put these panels on the main difference between the ones I just put on and these is apparently the ones I just put on track the sun, while these just kind of passively collect. And of course, you have a number of scientific instruments you can put on as well that they don't really, as far as I know, do anything. But, I mean, they may be useful nonetheless for something. So I'm just gonna try and get this thing dead in the center here. And I think that's probably pretty good. So now I'm gonna attempt another launch. Now that we actually have a way to keep our probe up and running. So, with as smoothly as things were going, I think hitting our target orbit is not going to be a problem at all. If it is, then at least nobody will get hurt. And that's a lesson that, the Kerbals had to learn the hard way, right? So, I'm just gonna bring up this nav ball, and we are going to, I might even just go full throttle here, quickly get up to the speed we need to. You know what I forgot to do? I completely forgot to turn on, SAS. Which means we may need to make a slight correction to our orbit. But we'll cross that bridge when we get there, I think. Right now, it's probably better that we don't fight the atmosphere. So, we're getting pretty close to jettisoning these fuel tanks. And at this point, I am going to attempt a bit of a correction in our orbit. And we're just gonna lock in there, as long as our apoapsis continues to rise, then we're going to be good. And we still have plenty of fuel here, so this isn't going to be a problem at all. I think getting to 200k is a reasonable thing to do. And we actually still have quite a while to go there. Although it looks like we may be ready to drop this next stage pretty soon. So, we will go ahead and prepare for that. And what is our apoapsis? We're going to cut out pretty soon. I'm just gonna do 200k for now, because we do need to increase, or we do need to get into orbit around here. So 200k seems like a good sort of orbit for us. And we're just gonna try and stay out of the atmosphere. And we're doing pretty well. We don't need all that much delta V. And we're not going to get the best orbit out of this, but I think we're doing pretty good here. So we have 53 seconds to a 53-second burn. I think that's doable. Although y'all may not, so we'll just see. We should be in position now. And if I did do this right, then we have more than enough fuel to make that, I think. Now the question is, how close can we get to the center? And it looks like we can get pretty close. So we're going to start that burn now. And we will... I guess we can't move forward while we're doing this burn. But if we go back to this view, you can see we actually have plenty of fuel here. And maybe 250k wasn't all that unrealistic. I guess I was just being a little bit too conservative. So where are we at right now? Now we could, when we get to periapsis, reduce our apo, and I think that's probably the best thing to do for our 200k orbit. By the way, what's our inclination looking like? Because we can't really... We are doing pretty well. We are doing, we're actually doing spectacularly well. We've only got an inclination of 0.8 degrees. And when we reach this ascending node, then we should be able to level that out. So, let's just go ahead, reduce Apo to, I don't know, about 200k or so. And that, I don't think we're going to be able to do much better than that. I guess we could very slightly move it up. So as you can see, this is a bit of a balancing act to get going for what we're trying to do. So that's 201. Maybe we can get just a little bit closer. I don't know if we're going to be able to do much better than this. I think at this point we're giving ourselves way tighter margins than we need. Because, I mean, in reality, we're not going to actually hit this margin precisely anyway. So, we will just get in position for that. Chances are we will burn retro, or close to retro at least, to get there, and our fuel is pretty good at the moment. We only need 6.9 meters per second delta V, and that should be more than enough to get us where we need to be going. So just a very, very slight tap will do it. And we don't want to go too fast on this because we'll completely miss our mark. So, definitely, I think the rate we're going at now is probably good enough. We're still more or less on target, and we really don't need much in the way of burn time here. So I'm going to get ready to throttle up. Our heading looks good, and I think we will be corrected here, at least partially. So what did that bring our apoapsis to? That actually wasn't too bad. Now we can hit this descending node and change our inclination slightly. We want to get as close to an equatorial orbit as possible, so 0.2 degrees, 0.1 degrees, I don't think it'll be possible to get any better than that. And it just seems like that is going to be unrealistic, so we will go ahead and get ourselves in position for that. It's probably going to require us to pitch, maybe not up but down. Just figuring out where this thing is can be a pain sometimes. But I'd say pretty much that we are fairly on the mark. This seems to be going much better than last time. Or at least in my opinion. I think as long as we hit that descending node, then we should be fairly happy with our orbit. So it's now time for us to burn. And what's our inclination? We're at 1 degree. Well, maybe. Yeah, we're at 1 degree, so I'd call that a success. Now we just need to better circularize our orbit, and I think we'll be good with this satellite. We just have to set our apoapsis to be as close to as close as possible to what we already have. So I think this is pretty much the best we're gonna get to circular. Because at a certain point you can get so precise that you can't realistically perform the burn. So one thing I am going to do is I am going to turn on the reaction control system to help us a little bit. This will, in essence, allow us to level ourselves out a little bit faster. In this case, I believe we're actually going to burn we're actually going to burn prograde, I would think, but you know, I don't see the target. Maybe we should get closer. Is that target? Oh wait, I deleted the node, didn't I? All that hard work and now the node's been deleted. But that's okay. We can get back. It's whoa. Well, now I have to delete the node because I don't particularly feel like changing my inclination after working so hard to get it um oh, that's actually not a bad periapse. If we could just get it a little bit closer. I mean, we have so long at this orbit to get to apsis. I mean, you can see that we have over 10 minutes before we burn. And I am willing to call this about as precise as I'm willing to get, so we are just going to settle down here. I don't really understand why we're pointed this way, because it seems like we would want to burn along the equator. And maybe it'll turn out that that will change. I don't know why we're burning along the poles. It just doesn't make any sense to me. But the only thing I can assume is that, yeah, this thing's moving along with the the thingy. So we've got maybe a minute or so. I'm going to get that down so we don't miss our burn. And we actually have a little bit of adjustment to do here, but not too much. I mean, that should put us right on the nose, and we should be able to burn pretty soon, so I'm gonna do that now. And that actually probably made our orbit a little bit eccentric. The question is, do we really want to bother? Well, I mean, I kind of sort of do. I mean, we're pretty close. I'm gonna just go ahead and burn here. I think we could even do a little bit better. If we go prograde, then we should, in principle, stretch out our apoapsis just a little bit. Or not our apoapsis, our periapsis. Although, no, it had the opposite effect. We want to go retro. And we'll actually go retro at our periapsis, which we're at now. So, what kind of effect did that have on us? So, I think that's good enough, personally. That's within a margin of 300 meters, so I think we've done pretty well. Now, one of the things we did completely forget to do here is deploy our sun tracking solar arrays, and that could be a bit of an issue. because we don't want to run out of power. Um, Although I think honestly we put enough batteries on here for this to almost certainly be overkill. I mean, at this point, this is more for looks than anything, so, yeah, I mean, we probably overdid it, um, to be sure. So we'll just extend all of our useless science equipment that doesn't do anything at the moment. And um, we will get this show on the road. And then once we do that, I'm thinking maybe a polar orbit wouldn't be too bad of a thing to do either. Yeah, see how cool that looks, and we can, of course, point it towards the planet. Unfortunately, I don't quite know that there's a way to keep it facing the planet. I mean, I'm sure it's going to, at one point we're going to get to a point to where we're, slowly drifting. So what we need to do is we need to actually turn this off and counteract the rotation a little. And my thought is if we can get this thing to rotate in phase. Well, why isn't the SAS turning off? That's ridiculous. But if we could get that thing to rotate in phase with the planet, then I think, we've got ourselves a pretty good deal. Let's see. We can't turn off SAS for some reason. That is kind of weird, to say the least. Maybe it's... I bet you we're out of power. Except that we're not. I'm not entirely sure what's going on here, but we'll leave that for another time. Because I can't seem to get RCS to turn off. But, we can go directly to the Space Center at this point. And we can go into our tracking station. And what we will probably see is Flutnik, orbiting a consistent, the consistent 200k orbit around the planet. And we still have fuel to spare. So, I mean, that's pretty nice. So, yeah, I mean, that's pretty cool. It's not a bad first attempt for a satellite. Now, I guess the question is if whether or not a polar orbit would be about as easy. But you know, we had so much fuel left over that I honestly don't think hitting a polar orbit would be that bad. I mean, certainly, certainly I would think that, a polar orbit would be just a little bit better than, or just a little bit harder to do, but not too much. So we're gonna shoot for, a 200K orbit again, but this time in a polar configuration. And if I'm correct about this, instead of moving to the east, I'm gonna want to move to the north. So here, my thought is that we definitely want to make sure we don't move against air resistance because we will expend a little bit more energy because we're not going to have the planet to help us this time. But on the flip side, we should reach apoapsis just a little bit more easily. So SAS on. I'm gonna pull out the nav ball, and we should be golden for this. And hopefully, these things won't run into each other. So we're just going to go. I'm gonna go about half throttle here. And we're very quickly building up speed here again. This is going to take definitely a little bit of work because we're already getting pretty close to our terminal velocity here, and we want to make sure we don't overshoot that. So here we will just set it down at about 150 or so. And before too long, we're gonna be ready to make this maneuver. So hopefully that won't be too long. We're already beginning to lose a stage, but we can go ahead and... Whoa, that was totally the wrong thing to do. I'm gonna go north here. And so this is not going quite as well, but I think we'll make it. And you can see we already have a pretty decent polar orbit going on. Our time to apoapsis is steadily increasing, which is a good sign. That means we won't fall back to the planet. We do, unfortunately, have a little bit of a correction to make, which we could attempt to do here. And so I'm just going to give that a small amount of horizontal, and that way we will be slightly out of... we'll at least have arrested some of our movement. Now the question is, how long before we run out of fuel? And it seems like we already have. And so this may or may not work. We may not have enough fuel to get up there. Although now that we're out of the atmosphere, it may turn out to be a little bit easier than we think. So we're at a decent apoapsis now. I'm gonna circularize before I attempt to make any corrections here. The question is, how much delta V does that require, and do we have enough? And I think the answer to that is probably going to be no, that we don't have enough. Although we're hitting it pretty close. I mean, how much fuel do we have? I think we may need a slightly bigger rocket to do this. Because we are kind of at this weird, offset orbit. I don't want to spend too much fuel getting there. So what I'm going to do instead is I am going to bring this down just a little bit so that we're at least close to our target. And we're just gonna have to deal with the consequences of that whenever we get there, so, here we're going to go ahead and get this set up right now. We have about a minute. We need really more delta V than I think we have. And that's going to be an issue because we're very likely going to run out of fuel. This thing probably needs another stage. But on the flip side, we are pretty close to our burn. So the question is, will there be enough? And I think the answer is maybe just barely. But we're going to be in a very eccentric orbit. And so my intuition tells me, we need to burn retrograde and try again. So we'll do that when we get to periapsis, probably. Or we're actually at apoapsis right now. We'll just continue to burn retrograde. And that should allow us to do atmospheric braking, so this will unfortunately mean that we're going to crash into the planet, but you'll see that when we do this, our apoapsis will pretty much decline significantly, and after a few orbits, we are going to deal with so much drag that we're gonna have so much drag that it's, you know, going to bring us down. So here we're already coming down to 190, and we're actually a little deep into the atmosphere. And so, once we reach periaps, see, we've already completely, braked, so we're gonna hit this thing pretty soon. Because we are no longer, we're now on a ballistic trajectory, which is where we want to be, so this thing will decrease kinda slowly. It'll land maybe in the North Pole, I'm thinking. If drag continues to get us the way that it has, then we'll definitely land in the North Pole. And we can watch that. I've never actually been over the North Pole before, so this thing is going to burn up in the atmosphere. Pretty much. Well, it's not going to burn up in the atmosphere, but it will pretty much be destroyed instantly when it hits the ground, because even though we're going to hit terminal velocity pretty soon, we're still going to be going in there at about 150 meters a second, which is not good. So let's go back to the vehicle assembly building and let us add in maybe a couple more tanks so that we get a little bit more mileage out of our engines, because this is a more difficult burn to do. I'm actually going to be as safe as I can with this, and I'm going to pretty much I'm gonna pretty much get this thing as as fueled up as reasonably possible. So let's just get this going here, and we will plunk this thing down right here, where we won't get any. We might get a little bit of a balance issue there, but I think we can deal with that. SAS should be able to help us take care of that. So let's just go ahead and throw a couple of these on top of our other stages. And now we're going to try this yet again. I think with this extra fuel we'll actually be able to get into our projected orbit a little bit easier. And it turns out that another mistake that I think we made is we jettisoned our engines a little bit early when I made that turn, so we didn't have as much potential to get up to where we needed to get to. So, I guess we are going to go ahead and throttle up. I'm actually going to take a bit of a different approach and give us a faster initial burn. And that will give us, in some sense, a little bit better consumption. So here we're actually already about the point we need to be. And our apoapsis is not increasing. That's not good. There we go. So we're about to move forward again. And we are moving a little bit off course. Although I don't think that's going to be as big of a problem. And I mean, we are a little bit more polar here. We are going to have to make a bit of a correction here to get us into the proper orbital plane, but that may not be so much of an issue. Because now at least we have this thing getting us pretty far into the atmosphere. So we're pretty far out of the atmosphere. So I mean, we're doing good so far. If we're gonna hit that 200K orbit, we need to probably shut off about here. And so I don't know why it is that we're moving south. I think maybe maybe I do sort of have the wrong idea of which direction is which. and that's of course no good. But our apoapsis is not moving, so we're good to orbit, and we actually have a little bit of delta V available to us, so we definitely do not want a ballistic trajectory. And I'm actually going to shoot for a trajectory that gives me a slight amount of orbital decay, because I want this rocket to come back down the second stage. And I don't want too much, I just want enough to where it will eventually do this. So here our apoapsis is just moved just a little bit, but we'll get most of our delta V with this, so this isn't as big of a problem. At the same time, we will brake very slightly. So let's get in position, because we have at least 27 seconds of burn that we're going to have to do. And we will go ahead and get this thing going. So I call that maybe not as level as I'd like, but that would pretty much do it right there. So let's give ourselves a small amount of time to make any necessary corrections, and we should be dead on the center there. And I have a feeling this fuel tank will go before we're done with it, so I'm just gonna go ahead and burn now. And we can burn just a little bit more, get our apoapsis back up, because that thing is going to fall back to the planet, and we are going to bring up our periapsis enough to where our orbit doesn't decay. So we're going to hit that, see how much fuel we have. We still have half a tank, so I'm just going to take this time now to go ahead and deploy our solar panels so that we don't run out of power in the middle of this. And hopefully this thing will go pretty smoothly. Now the other thing that we may have to eventually worry about is these other satellites intersecting. I mean, again, I think we need to worry about that when we get to that point, but I mean, other than that, um, we actually have a bit of, they're actually a little bit, you know, out of range. I want to move that periapsis, down. Maybe 200. So these things may eventually intersect. Let's see, where are we at? One thing that does kind of suck about this interface is, we're trying to get all of this right can be a bit of a pain. We have 202 right there. Let's see if we can get it down to 200. We don't want to go to 202 unless we really have to. 205. There we go, 200. So, it turns out too that, our, it turns out that our deal is more or less spot on. We have about 4 minutes, and we only have 63 meters per second of delta V to worry about. So we're almost at the point to burn. And we're still more or less on course, so I'm not going to worry about correcting that too much. Now again, it is worth pointing out that, whoa, it is worth pointing out that, well, why my UI lock up? It always seems to happen. That is really weird. I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll go to the Space Center, and I may be able to salvage this. Because there's really no reason the UI should have locked up like that. We'll go to the tracking station, and we will go ahead and just get back into that polar orbit. By the way, I think it's even possible to rename this capsule, which we should, because we might confuse this with our equatorial satellite, and we do not want that. So let's get this thing back, and we are going to set our periapsis back to 200. And then, because UI locked up, we're gonna have to wait for our next window, but that shouldn't take too long. It's 205. And 212. I must have pushed in some. 208. 201. Maybe just a little bit more will do it. Because we do need to, hit it by a few meters. I think if we get back to 200, I think, maybe, just a little bit more. I think that's close enough to 200. I can be happy with that. And we are slightly off center, but that seems to have corrected it. So let's warp up. And we should hit our apoapsis pretty soon, so we will get ready for that. And hopefully this time, the interface will not mess up. And so, I'm just going to start the burn at 0, and I think we'll be able to hit that 63 meters per second pretty easily. Where are we at now? We could still stand to, we could still stand to gain a little bit there. There we go. That's actually a little bit closer to what I wanted, so that didn't take too much at all. And when we get up to periapsis, then we will we'll bring down the apoapsis just a bit. Maybe down to 200, and we'll be more or less circular at this point. Yeah, I'd say that's probably, given our current apsis, that would actually be a pretty good, a pretty good heading to be on. So I'm going to wait until we get close to apoapsis, and I'll give us a few seconds to make corrections. But it doesn't look like we'll need much in the way of correction. I think that we do have a fairly good heading, and we will be hitting this 33 meters per second. And so, did that bring down our apoapsis to where we wanted it to? Well, it doesn't look like it, so, we'll just burn just a little bit more here. Because, I mean, we're not going to get it perfect, but this is pretty close. I mean, this is within about 400 meters, so, hopefully we will avoid, the one issue that, that we should be worried about, which is hitting this other satellite. I mean, we're going about the same speed, though, which is not surprising because we're in about the same orbit. And so it's very likely that what will happen is that, let's see. What'll probably happen is that we will, hit this, descending node. It may end up changing our speed in a way that we don't want, but see, we're at 89.1 right now. I think we can do just a little bit better here. 89.5, 89.8. $89.9. I don't think we're going to be able to do much better than that, so we will just prepare to burn when we reach that descending node. And speaking of which, how much fuel do we have? We still have a good amount. I think we'll be able to hit that 270 meters a second at delta V pretty easily. So let's just get to our target as soon as we can. Make sure before we burn that our that we're not going to overshoot this. And we should very easily be able to hit this burn. I'm gonna burn about a second in. And that should, help us out with this substantially, so. Now we have just a little bit of correction to do, or do we? Yeah, I'm happy with that. So, there you go. We have a satellite both in equatorial orbit and in polar orbit. And the thing, I guess, to do now is to point ourselves at the planet and really we want to set this thing in a kind of rotation that will, pretty much, keep us pointing at the planet. So, let's go ahead and do that, but let's get these, those are the solar panels. We're on the dark side right now. Maybe we had better, what's going on here? At least we're on the light side, so we can see what we're doing now. I think for now I'm going to give up on keeping this thing focused on the planet, because that seems like that is going to be a fool's errand, so of course it might help if I turn off SAS as well. I mean, I think part of the issue is that I need rotation that is so slight as to require constant correction. So we'll just leave that there for now. Because unless, yeah, we're gonna at some point not even be able to do anything. But look, we still have like a quarter of a tank left, so this was actually a little bit more successful of a mission. Anyway, this has been Dilord Root, and take